I'd also remind you that this is a threat to the United States itself. Why is Iran building intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs? They're not building them to attack Israel. They've already got missiles that can hit Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. They can do that with their Shihabs. They're building intercontinental ballistic missiles to hit targets way beyond the horizon, targets in the United States. They're a threat to you too.
So concerns of a new threat today. Meanwhile, in Tehran, in the heart of the Islamic Republic, they are dancing in the streets. But as you just heard in Israel, certain circles here in the U.S. too, we are all in more danger today than we were yesterday. At least that's what some analysts are saying. We welcome you on this one of the most solemn days of the calendar, Good Friday. I'm John Bachman, in for J.D. Hayworth. Alongside me here is Vera Gibbons.
Nice to be here.
Great to have you back for another day. It's also the start of Passover. And as we just heard, again, there's a lot of concern about the future of Israel right now. And also with us today to talk about this, Miranda Kahn and Alan Dershowitz, Harvard Law professor and an ardent defender of the nation of Israel. Professor Dershowitz, it's good to have you with us.
Thank you, and happy holidays to everybody.
Exactly, happy holidays. So let's get started, guys. Alan, I want to first get your reaction. We heard from the Israeli spokesman there, Mr. Regev. We know about this concern. We expected to hear this from them. But is there anything else that you've heard from Israel that would have us more concerned than maybe we is there something else here that we should be paying closer attention to?
There are two concerns. One, that if Iran cheats and goes below the surface, as they've done in the past, they could have a breakout within a year and can have a bomb within the next few years. The second is, I think, the more fundamental concern, that is, the president was very unclear as to whether in 10 years, if they abide by all the rules, they are legally now entitled to make a bomb. The president said they will never have a bomb because they signed the Nuclear Proliferation Treaty. But he also said that in 10 years, many of the aspects that prevent them from developing a bomb if they don't cheat will be called off. So in Iran, they see it as a green light in 10 years to develop nuclear weapons. And of course, the president would like us to believe that no, this is cutting off all the pathways forever. And it seems to me we have to know a lot more about the deal. If it's a 10-year green light, it's not a good deal.
Alan, a special meeting has been called, a weekend meeting with cabinet and intelligence and security leaders. What is expected to come out of this deal, this meeting?
Well, again, I think there's going to be a lot of inquiry as to what the deal really means. And if it turns out it's a 10-year invitation, I think Israel, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, Egypt, Jordan will not accept the deal and will say they're not bound by the deal, and they have an option to do what they think they have to do to protect the survival of their own countries. You know, we all hope it doesn't come to any kind of a military option being exercised, but if the choice is between Iran getting a nuclear weapon and Iran being prevented from getting a nuclear weapon, obviously the prevention, whatever it takes, is preferable by at least the countries who are most directly endangered. Of course, the United States is also endangered because of the ICBM. I think at the moment we need clarification. We need to know whether this is a 10-year deal or a 15-year deal or a 25-year deal. It sounds to me like it's a 10-year deal, which, if it's complied with legally, Iran is entitled legally to start develop a bomb in 10 years. If so, that's not a good deal. It's just a postponement, kicking the can down the road and creating a game changer, to quote the president's own words.
Well, speaking of the president, Alan, President Obama put the pressure squarely on the U.S. Congress in his news conference yesterday. Take a listen to what he had to say, and we want to get your reaction.
If Congress kills this deal, not based on expert analysis and without offering any reasonable alternative, then it's the United States that will be blamed for the failure of diplomacy.
Well, of course, there will be expert analysis. Nobody is going to reject this deal based on political considerations. It's too important. There will be expert analysis. And the question is whether that expert analysis will lead us to the conclusion that this is a deal that invites Iran to develop nuclear weapons in 10 years.
Alan, one of the Democrats in Congress who was pushing back against the president was Bob Menendez. He's obviously distracted now. With about 30 seconds before we take a short break here, do you think there can still be enough consensus in Congress with Democrats feuding over who's going to be the next whip in the Senate to get enough votes to push back against the president if Congress really wants to step in and say, whoa?
Well, there are two ways of stepping in. One is to simply not withdraw the sanctions, that doesn't require any votes. That just requires nothing to be done. And the other is to try to pass a statute that requires a veto-proof majority, which probably is not available right now.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. We want to continue to talk about this, the Bob Menendez case, because, Professor, we also want to get your assessment on all this as a criminal defense attorney as well. We're coming back here on America's Forum. Alan Dershowitz is going to stick around with us. You see Miranda Khan right there. Vera Gibbons is also going to be back with us. We'll talk about that, Bob Menendez, Iran, much more to come here on America's Forum. John Bachman in for J.D. Hayworth today. Happy holidays, happy Easter, happy Passover to everybody. And we welcome you back to America's Forum here. John Bachman in for J.D. Hayworth alongside Vera Gibbons, who's back with us for another day. Oh, great to have you here. And also joining us for this part of the conversation is Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz, and also bringing in Larry Elder now, Newsmax analyst and contributor, joining us from the secret Newsmax bunker somewhere in California. Larry, great to have you with us. We'll get back to Alan real quickly. We were talking about the Bob Menendez case. He was charged with accepting nearly $1 million in gifts and campaign contributions from a longtime friend, a wealthy guy, eye doctor, who's also had his own trouble with the feds in terms of Medicare, Medicaid. This case has been described as a case of political retribution. The timing is certainly suspicious here. Alan, what do you say?
Well, it's a very questionable indictment. Remember that in order to be convicted of a federal crime, you can't just receive gifts. Friends give friends gifts. And you can't just do favors for friends. Friends do favors for friends. There has to be an explicit agreement that in exchange for an airplane ride, for a hotel room, I will get you something that you are otherwise not entitled to. Remember, political contributions are protected by the First Amendment, and also the check and balance function of Congress is protected under the Speech and Debate Clause. This is going to be a very hard case for the feds to win, especially on the issue of bribery and exchange of gifts. It might be a little easier for them on simply failure to report the gifts, but that is not as serious a crime. So this sounds to me more like business as usual and selective prosecution and exercise of discretion to go after somebody who's been a thorn in the side of this particular administration on Cuba, on Iran, on some of the other issues as well.
Larry, what do you say?
Alan, I might point out that Tom DeLay also had similar charges leveled against him. It was years and years before
Ted Stevens, too.
Ultimately he was vindicated, but it's very difficult to prove a quid pro quo, as you pointed out.
Right, and SB as well. There have been several of these charges. Edwards, you know, whenever you go after a high visible politician, you better have your case pretty solid. And this case does not seem particularly solid, particularly on the quid pro quo exchange of gifts for gifts. So I think it may end up with an acquittal. He has a very good lawyer, Abby Lowell, who handled the John Edwards case successfully and got an acquittal. And I think this case is going to go to trial. I don't think it's going to be plea bargain.
And that's probably why he's so confident in these news conferences. Let's go move on to this religious freedom issue. The Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal, he's weighing in on the matter. Let's take a listen to what Jindal had to say.
America did not create religious liberty. Religious liberty created America. It is the reason, it is the foundational, it's a foundational freedom and right. Without religious liberty rights, there's no freedom of speech, freedom of association. Government should never step in and tell Christians that they have to choose between making a living and their Christian values.
Well, we've had a number of big-name Republicans come out in favor of these laws. Meantime, the governors of Arkansas and Indiana have revised those laws. Where does it put a person like Bobby Jindal or Ted Cruz or some of these other guys, Alan, who have come out and supported these laws when the governors themselves are actually changing them?
Well, you know, they're just dead wrong when they say government can never step in. Remember, we live in a world where jihadists, in the name of religion, behead people and kill. Obviously, the government has the right to prevent people from exercising their religion when that exercise of religion interferes with very important governmental values. And it's a very important governmental value not to discriminate against gays. Far more important than not to bake a cake or deliver flowers. Now, there's a big difference if you're a minister or a priest or a rabbi and your religion forbids you from actually marrying two men or two women. That's a fundamental interference with the religion, and the balance should be struck in favor of religion. But when it comes to baking a cake or selling flowers, no, the balance has to be struck against discrimination. Nobody should be allowed to refuse to serve people if they don't like gays, or they don't like blacks, or they don't like Jews, or they don't like women, based on some religious principle. So a balance has to be struck. The laws as originally passed don't strike that balance. The law as changed in Indiana now begins to strike the appropriate balance. So what we need is a religious liberty law with an exception for protected classes whose discrimination is prohibited by law, and then even that has to have a balance, but not if it's a central core of your religion, like not marrying somebody. It's a very delicate balance, and we have to stop shouting at each other and try to create that delicate balance in the law. We can do it.
Alan, there's been so much backlash already to these laws. I mean, what are some further implications of the laws going forward? Real quick.
Well, the implications are it creates a clash between two very important values in our society: the value of anti-discrimination and the value of exercising religious freedom. And we have to make sure that we have a delicate balance. That's the main issue.
Well, Alan, we'll have to leave it there.
And motivates people to vote for these laws. You know, I'm reminded, there are so many laws that can be passed in the name of religious freedom whose goal it is really to continue discrimination. We have to make sure that religion is not misused to promote discrimination. All
right, Alan, we'll have to leave it there because I want to get your book in there. Alan Dershowitz, also the author of Terror Tunnels, The Case for Israel's Just War. You get that online on Amazon.com and many other places as well. Alan Dershowitz, thanks for being with us. We're back on America's Forum.